Welcome back from the break. I hope those tuning in have had a chance to grab your lunch or a takeaway in the comfort of your office or home, as we are about to open this afternoon with an industrious lineup of speakers. For those just joining us, my name is Frank, and here at Intellect, in the next slide, we are on a mission to make mental health care and well-being support accessible for everyone. For organizations who are looking to safeguard employee well-being and cultivate a thriving workplace, Intellect equips workforces with a clinically validated approach to personalize the right care your employees need. Now, in the next slide, we'll go back to the agenda, where before the break, we had a chance to hear from an exciting session from Joan, Head of Human Resources APAC at Nielsen, on the importance of vulnerability in leadership, speaking from a personal and HR leader's standpoint. This next session builds upon that, with 80% of employees in Southeast Asia reporting exhaustion and disengagement, according to Intellect research. We'll hear from leaders of Singapore's top employers today on how to cultivate a culture where the need for employee well-being is not only heard, but also delivered. With that, next slide, we have our CEO and co-founder Theodoric chairing a very distinguished panel. Joining him are two individuals. Firstly, Benjamin Bow, Managing Director of McDonald's Singapore. He has a wealth of experience in strategy, operations, and management in various Fortune 500 organizations, such as Procter & Gamble. As an accomplished executive leader, Benjamin's strategy revolves around building a company that is people-focused, both for customers and employees, for generations to come. Also joining us will be Kwek Siu Rui, the CEO and co-founder of Carousel. Since the launch of Carousel in 2012, Siu Rui has been deeply involved in product strategy, international expansion, and of course, growth. He's passionate about technology and committed to building a product-first company, solving meaningful problems for people globally, and inspiring the world to start making secondhand the first choice. With that, over to you, Theo.
Thanks very much, Frank. And it's a pleasure to be here in this session today. I'm just going to pause the screen share and get everyone's faces up. All right. So thanks so much again, Benjamin and Siu Rui, for taking time to speak with us at Mental Festival Asia 2022. It's an honor to be speaking with both of you. I know both of you guys well, but I think it's great to have the audience also hear from the thoughts and experiences that you guys both share. So Frank has kindly introduced a bit of you guys, both Ben and Siu Rui, but I think without needing to say any more, both of you guys both run companies that are very well-known, household names, McDonald's and Carousel respectively, that I think everyone has pretty much used or consumed in their daily life. So it's really great to hear from both of you that on how you look at mental health, and importantly in this session, we're going to talk about it from a leader's perspective, basically. So we're going to kick it off. We'll make this session intimate and personal, but also one that we hope to get some good insights here. So we're going to start with a bit of an icebreaker. I think most folks tuning in, the audiences here, should know both of your brands, but I don't think maybe not as much people know about the people behind it running the show as well. So I want to go with a bit of an icebreaker, getting to know each of you. Could we start with a bit of a background? Could you tell and share with us something that you guys are talented at that maybe not many people know about? So let's start with maybe Siu Rui. If you could share a bit more about what is one thing you're good at that not many people know.
I love the Big Mac, or eat it almost 90% of the time. But on a more serious note, I guess I'm not good at it, but something I always aspire to try and be is to be a cockroach. I think cockroaches are absolutely resilient. They don't die. They're very agile. They're fast. They're stealthy. And they're very unexpected. And I think those traits are important for founders and for startups. And it's something that I constantly aspire to be, and hope many of our teammates also aspire to be, because I think it's important to be relentlessly resourceful that way. So that's a little bit about me.
That's an amazing and very, very iconic aspiration to be. Yeah, but very, very good. Thanks for that, Siu Rui. Ben, over to you. What's one thing that you're good at?
I don't know about good at, but the two things I really love, other than work, right? I love music and I love sports. But one thing I don't like is being in the spotlight when it comes to these two things. So Going all the way back from my childhood, when I play sports, I just love being in football, rugby, and all that team sports. And I always like being part of the crew, part of the group, and just having fun. I don't like being captain. I like being vice captain actually, because that's when you're kind of getting the people together, and then when the captain gets too angry, you're like, hey guys, don't worry, man. No, don't worry, we can do this. So I prefer being on that spot, which is quite ironic because now I have to hold captaincy, but I have to learn certain things that I'm not very comfortable with. Same thing as music. I love being in a band. In fact, I used to write and perform music in the likes of what's that place that's gone? Oh no, it's still there. It's near SMU. I can't remember that place now.
Substation.
Substation, yes. So that band, Timber, they used to be there.
Yes.
We used to do Monday, Tuesdays because that's when people don't usually come. So we don't lose money if we play badly. So we used to do that. But yeah, I love these things, and when life was simpler, I always appreciate spending time having my time with the boys and sports, all playing some music, the band.
Awesome. That's great to have. And
Hey,
actually,
thanks, Siri, for being such a big fan of McDonald's.
that's an important one. I think many people share that similar passion as well. But no, amazing. Thanks a lot, Ben. I think I was just gonna say recently I saw a picture of you actually playing in a band recently. So good to see that you're keeping that active outside of your work as well. Awesome. So good to have that, both of that personal nuggets of insights about who you guys are. We're gonna dive into what this session is really all about, right? Talking about mental health from the lens of a leader. So shifting gears here, we're going to speak about leadership, something that I think is a word that gets thrown around just about every day as well, right? One of the biggest genres for books is leadership as a genre, and it's not new altogether. But in your opinion, after running Carousel for the last decade, then running McDonald's and having seen through different organizations as well and at different scales, what is your opinion of what makes a good leader, right? And what can employees expect from you and other businesses? What do you hope to actually craft in your organizations respectively? Let's start with maybe Ben first.
Yeah, that's like you say, it's not the topic of the year or topic of the month. That's a topic that's been going on for generations. And if you read a lot of books, they always talk about leadership that has transitioned over the many years and many generations. At one point of time, servant leadership doesn't work or didn't work, right? But more and more so now, we find that servant leadership is the right model. And thankfully, that's the kind of leadership that I aspire towards. And I like that model because it's very clear after working at McDonald's or different companies, what I've learned very quickly is you can't do things alone. That's number one. And in fact, if you do things alone, that's where you crash and burn very quickly. Uh, uh, and when people work together and they're very clear on their objectives, and then you're able as a leader to harness the strengths of each of the individuals that work with you, whether it's your leadership team or your execution team, it's very magical when things actually work out. And that's what I really like. So when it comes to leadership, I really veer towards that. So looking at my team, I'm very clear, what are the assets? How do I build on the strengths? What are the opportunities? How do we improve on that? But at the same time, if there are opportunities there and those are blind spots, don't hammer on that. Just focus on the strengths, and then we build a team around each other so that when fire comes and you hold hands and you hold the fire together, you can hold it. Separately, you can't. And I've seen it so many times across my career at McDonald's over the few years and even before. And it's very similar to what we spoke about with football teams and rugby teams, and all. You can see how teams will crash when they do not gel, when they keep fighting within each other, or when they're together and they know who to leverage on in times of defense or offense, they work well. So that's the kind of model that I go towards. And to me, that's the very sustainable model because everyone's happy. They're not being pushed to become who they're not.
No, that's amazing. I think just want to pull out two pieces there. One of it, servant leadership, which is, as you said, not something that's new, but I think particularly relevant in this day and age as well, where it's collaborative, not just kind of top down pushing certain agendas as well. And the other thing that you mentioned is really, I think, picking out the strengths of people, and I think that's something that's quite insightful. One that I personally also think about quite a fair bit. Rather than trying to get everyone to a baseline average, how can you harness and pick out what someone excels at and bring it to the next level? So that's really useful and insightful. Cyril, over to you to key your thoughts. I think one of the interesting parts of having you both here, it's you've run Carousel from a team of, I think, 3 people towards now hundreds of employees. So you've seen the whole scale, and very much so today, I believe you will also concur. You guys are very much still a startup, even want to be lean, nimble, agile. So what does leadership mean to you, and how do you see it with your leaders as well?
No, I think definitely also resonate with what you guys were just discussing about and Ben was sharing, right? It's a team sport, and it's about, we call it making magic happen together, recognizing that everyone brings diverse skills, experiences, passions to the table. And, when you gel all of that together to problem solving, you come up with a magical solution, and definitely a better solution and answer than any single person can alone. So totally resonate that. I think another philosophy over the years that I guess has something that we've lived by was first and foremost recognizing that anyone who joins Carousel is so passionate and talented in whatever they do. And we keep hiring people who raise the bar, right? So these people can literally be anywhere else, but they chose to dedicate a very meaningful part of their lives to this mission, right? And the least we can do is to give them an environment where they can make meaningful impact, do meaningful work, give them accelerated growth opportunities, because in the startup, there's always more problems than people. And also hopefully create an environment where people look forward to actually going to work, hanging out with their teammates, and actually enjoying that camaraderie and problem solving together. So that's something that guides us. It's pretty much our people vision, right? And we're not perfect. I don't think we're great at it yet, but it's a North Star, it's a guiding vision that keeps us trying to do our best for teammates who do so much for us and dedicate such a meaningful part of their lives to the mission, right?
No, thanks for that, Terry. I think one of a very good point you pointed out here, and one of the analogies that I'm sure many startup people or founders or aspiring entrepreneurs hear before is building a startup is kind of like building a plane as you're flying a plane as you're building it, basically, and it is kind of descending, and you're hoping each thing you build, each milestone you hit is building a new critical part of the plane you're running. So there are, I think, many things that startups try to do, but it's naturally a lot of that in the process work that also happens as well. But a very good point that you highlighted, which I think many people leaders can actually resonate with, it's making sure it's a two-way street. Also giving back and making sure the environment that people thrive in, not just kind of what does the employee do, but how do companies do for them as well. So thanks a lot for that, and it's a great opening into how you guys view leadership as well. And we're gonna dig a bit deeper. So moving on towards a next question I have here. And before we jump in, I want to cite a report and a study that was actually done by Mercer earlier this year. They found that actually there's a pretty staggering 81% of employees that feel at risk of burnout this year, which is really, really high. But compared to what was already a concerning about 63% 2 years ago in 2020, it's quite a sharp jump, and one that I'm sure both of you think about quite a fair bit. So coming from different businesses and backgrounds respectively, could you share a bit more about what is your philosophy to ensuring that employees feel cared for and part of the tribe? However you guys term it, and not just like a number or employee. How do you guys think about that? And I think Siri, you briefly alluded to that already. Yeah. So maybe I'll start with you, building off what you shared, or maybe something different, and then later on to Ben.
Yeah, I think Joe is like similar to what I was just saying, right? It's ultimately a team sport. And literally no single person's ego should come in the way of the mission. And that's something we celebrate all the time. In fact, we have a culture statement at Carousel, right? We constantly talk about this one Carousel spirit, where we fight hard for a mission, we make magic happen, and we win together. And we repeat all the time, all the time at every opportunity we can, on emails, in town halls, in celebrations and whatnot. And we really want to have people feel like they are in this together. And we're going to fight together, we're going to win together. So that's definitely one thing, right? Culturally, just recognizing that we're here to make magic happen. But the second thing is also recognizing that our teammates are people with their own lives, their own family, their own personal circumstances, and they need to bring their whole selves to work. And therefore, it's important that we also take care of their overall wellness and mental health being a very significant part of that. So one of the things that I guess the pandemic has brought to the forefront was this deliberate effort, as everyone was sheltered at home, to start paying attention to how people are coping, how people are taking care of their own wellness. And we had a series of initiatives, right? So we dedicated Wednesdays to be Wellness Wednesdays. So our people experience team would, organize different types of activities, sometimes Zoom workouts, yoga sessions, talks about financial wellness, very well-rounded type of sessions. The second thing that we implemented was what we actually call Blue Sky Fridays. This is actually quite cool. We today are quite barraged with non-stop Google Meet calls, video calls, back-to-back meetings, especially as you're working from home. And so one of the things we just felt was like it was so overwhelming. So every Blue Sky Friday, one Friday a month, last Friday a month of the month, we would have a day where we have no calls, no Slack messages, no meetings, so that people can just focus on doing focus work, completing their project, zero interruptions. Personally, as an introvert, it's a godsend for me. Actually a treat for me is having a day of no meeting. So I look forward to Blue Sky Fridays. Second thing is that, we've really quite embraced this whole working from home thing, right? So actually, we give employees a choice, work from office, work from home, especially if your role permits complete flexibility. And one of the things that we thought was important to support that was also this concept of flexi work hours. So we also recognize that, hey, actually everyone has their own circumstance, right? If you're a parent, you need to send your kid to school. So what we wanted to enforce was at least a collaboration window. So every day between 11 to 5 Singapore time, like that's when you're expected to be around for calls to collaborate. But otherwise, outside of that, you can be kind of flexi about it. And so these are some of the initiatives that we started thinking about, like one, recognizing that it's a really one carousel team sport, we're in this together, and two, recognizing that everyone's an individual, their own lives, they need to bring their whole selves to work. And if they come refreshed, they come energized, their whole selves are in a great shape, I think ultimately our users, our community, our team will ultimately benefit as well.
Now that's really great points in terms of reiterating the values and culture that you guys want to drive, and also secondly, giving that individual recognition of how people live and how they work as well, which I think both fantastic points. Thanks a lot for that, Suri. Ben, over to you. What did you and McDonald's think about that?
Well, I can break it to two. One is really the workplace culture and how we work, right? And the second one is really from a leadership standpoint, what is our role in driving mental wellness or mental clarity amongst our folks? So I'll talk about more, maybe the first part first, which is the workplace culture. So at McDonald's, we have this tagline that we've used over the many years. And we always say we want to build a winning and caring team that proudly serves. And each of these words have a meaning. So winning is really, as a business, you have to win because you're fighting against competition. You got to get share of stomach and all that. So obviously, winning spirit is not a bad thing, but you can't win at all costs. Then how do you win? You really win by caring about the work you do, caring about your people that do the work, but caring also about your focus areas so that everyone knows exactly what to do and puts their energy. It's very similar to what Siri said. When you know exactly what to do, you put your full energy in, you get it done. That's a lot of fulfillment. Number one. Number two, get it done, you go home. So that's always very good. And proudly serves is, why do we even exist in this business? Very similar to what Siri said, actually. You could join any industry. You could join any F&B brand. So why join McDonald's? We have a saying or calling in a way. We are here to serve, and we're here to serve our customers. We're here to also serve each other because we are ultimately a team business when it comes to the restaurants, especially. So just that tagline itself, it's not just a line, but every one of those words means something. And that really drives the way we look at how we treat each other, how we treat our customers, how we treat the business as well. So when it comes to how that trickles down to all the things like workplace culture, we during COVID it was really tough, especially for our restaurants. They had to go through changes and changes every Thursday, Friday when the MMTF say something, boom, Sunday you got to get it done. That's how quickly they had to move. So we really focus a lot on asking our employees how you are, and then also changing the discussion or changing the narrative to everyone is stressed to I choose happy. So we have this program called I Choose Happy, and the whole idea of Choose Happy is look, the workplace is tough, the external environment is not getting any better. You have a choice. Either you worry about everything or you worry about yourself and choose your happiness first. And with that, all your mental wellness programs come to place, mental health awareness. We're also embarking, of course, on getting more mental wellness support that, Intellect is provides a very good platform for. These are all the things that really showcase to our employees how it's really about you first. Are you okay? Are you happy? And if you're not happy, what are you not happy about? Having those discussions early and going all the way from top down to the restaurants, that really helps to drive that culture that, hey, people are actually listening, people care. So we're not just a winning team that wants to win for the sake of everything, but really winning at a sustainable pace. So that's really more on the work culture part. And of course, flexi work hours and all that do come into play. But because but majority of our employees are in the restaurants. So for them, it's really about making sure they have a voice. And then when they talk about happiness and mental wellness, they're being heard and they have the tools to leverage. From a leadership standpoint, I think, again, like we said earlier, there's so many problems in the world right now. And being in Singapore and being a business that imports every single thing, almost, every problem seems to trickle down to our business. And I'm sure Siri can also feel that when it comes to the tech world. So again, we have a choice. As leaders, do we want to worry about everything and try to solve every problem? Or do we want to put our heads together and say, why do we exist in Singapore? Why are we so strong, or where are we not strong at? And then focus our attention on where we are strong at, and then just focus our attention on that. All our initiatives, all our campaigns have to focus on our strengths because we can't fight every battle. And that really helps everybody because now we have a blueprint. All right, guys, this is what we focus on. If someone comes to the idea, hey, you want to do all this, you can. Yes, it sounds good, but it'll take a lot of time and you won't get results. In the end, you'll be the one demoralized. So if everyone focuses on the right things, that blueprint's clear, everyone knows exactly what to. They can be creative on how they want to solve the problem, no problem. But at least they know what the problem is and know how they want to solve it. So that to me, the balance of both helps to drive a happier workplace or less stressful workplace, so to speak.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I think really iconic statement there. I hopefully we're not butchering. It's a winning and caring team that serves, and I think that's one that really makes a lot of sense and balances both the right elements to get the right outcome as well. And choosing to be happy, I think that's one big thing that is a good reminder for all of us as well. I think myself and all the leaders of that tuning in, it's always a choice, even when it trickles down to how you run your business strategy as well. So really, really insightful. Thanks both of you guys for that. I want to dig one layer deeper, just on one particular aspect of well-being, as you guys both alluded to, in your relevant industries respectively, and the years of experience you guys have seen. What is some of the most common and observed trends of what causes burnout among employees, and maybe just briefly, what do you think are fundamental things that could adjust or reshift or shift how people view this altogether? Maybe you see Rafus?
Yeah, I was thinking about this as well, and at least over the years, one thing this is a personal view, right? I think one thing I've felt speaking to my teammates, as they come out of school, take on a job, and even senior leaders as well. I think when the pattern I've seen when people run out of steam or start to feel a bit disillusioned is when they're not quite clear of their anchor or their purpose of like why they're doing what they're doing every single day. And it's easy to just be caught up working 9 to 9 as a fresher, right? I just want to prove myself. And then at some point you hit a wall and you realize like, hey, actually, why am I doing this? So I think ultimately people need to know what's their core purpose, what's anchoring them, knowing what's important to them personally. Some people may choose to really go out for their careers. It's fine. That's what drives them. It's okay. Some people may say like, I think I'm going to do my best work if I'm well balanced. I know ultimately I have this passion that I want to pursue outside of work, My work is a means to that passion, but damn well at work, I'm going to do my best and give my 100% and help the company win. But I'm also doing and achieving my purpose in the same. I think once you lose that balance, once you lose that anchor as an individual, that's when you start to run into this disillusionment, this burnout. And like for myself, right? Most people ask me like, hey, actually, you've been doing this 10 years, been working pretty much nonstop, right? You never ever switch off, and like, don't you ever get burnout? Right? But I know ultimately, I'm very privileged to do what I do. It's a product that I love using myself. It's a product that tens of millions of people love. It's a product that allows me to grow as an individual, as a leader professionally, and it's a real privilege. And when you know that cheesy saying, right? When you do what you love, you never work another day. Like that's my life, right? So, but I think you need to know what drives you, what's your core purpose, what's your anchor, and I think it starts from there. Once you don't have that, you lose that balance. I think that's what leads to that inevitable vicious cycle, and then ending up in a very bad place, which is burnout. Yeah.
I think just for those that don't know, and I am personally always in awe. Siri is one of the and not just myself seeing it, but I think a lot of people know Siri is one of the hardest workers, or probably the hardest worker in the room over the past decade. And as he shares, never switches off. But I think as you just mentioned, it stems from that deep anchor of the purpose and the passion of what you do, and really always recognizing that. And I can see from both of you guys, that's what you and the company always drives, with the company vision and purpose as well, which I think really supplements and also helps individuals find that individual passion. So that's an amazing response. Ben, what do you think about that? And also any additional points in terms of what you've observed that causes burnout?
No, I completely agree with that. The sense of purpose is so important, and once you know it, it's how it energizes you and motivates you is quite magical. But I mean, I've been on both sides before. Right now I know very well why I'm here. But I've been in situations where I'm just trying to chase, and then I realize, well, actually, what am I chasing? Why am I chasing? And if I get there, then what's next? And it's so tiring. And I hope I never get into that state again. But right now, at least I know, when it comes to this brand, I'm merely just a part of the wheel, right? This brand has been around for what, 40 over years, and I'm just merely building on the great work that a lot of people have done. And the great work helps to serve many, many employees. And we have about 9,000 plus, going to 10,000. And then we serve, Singapore. We have about 5 to 6 million transactions every month. Those are the people we're serving. And when for me, is once I realized that, it's okay. Yes, my job is serious, because if I make a mistake, I either piss off a lot of our people or piss off a lot of our customers. But at the same time, when you do it well and you do it, everyone has fun. Our crew and managers have fun. The customers all have fun. They talk about McDonald's in a fun way, in a very localized way, and that motivates me. So for me, it's easier not to burn out when I'm clear. So I completely relate to what Sirius talked about. When it comes to my people, or the people around us who burn out, there's a few things I also noticed. One is when they don't talk to each other, or they don't realize themselves that ultimately you're just part of a wheel, right? I mean, in years and years to come, we will pass on, and then the world moves on. So if you don't realize that, then you take yourself too seriously, or you always think that you're alone in this game, you're alone when you have problems and you have no one to talk to. That's when it becomes very lonely, and that's how burnout happens, because you keep working, you're thinking you're the only one facing that problem. But actually, there are a lot of people out there who might face the same problem, whether it's your colleagues, your friends, or family, and talking about it just makes it feel so much better. And somehow, when you realize you're not alone in a lot of things, you just feel lighter, and then you're more courageous to do some things, make some decisions in your life, whether it's work or play. So I think that's one. And unfortunately, in people in Singapore, we are very used to keeping everything to ourselves, especially problems, because we are brought up to say, hey, start talking about problems. But my old time last time, I used to have this all that. So you're brought up to just keep quiet about it. We shouldn't, because the more we talk about it, that's how sometimes new ideas come about, and it's pretty awesome when it happens. The second one is a bit of what I said earlier, which is the clarity of not just purpose, but also what can you solve, what is within your control to solve, just focus on that. And once you work within your boundaries, then at least your mind is at peace. What I've seen a lot of people do is they worry about every single thing, thinking they have to solve everything. That gets too tiring because, you know, yeah, problems always are. There are more problems than there are people in every industry so far we've seen. So focus on the problems that you can make a difference, and the rest of it, you know, c'est la vie, right? You know, if it comes, it comes. If you have somehow life gets around it. So those are the two things I noticed, and yeah, talk more and then just focus on what you can focus on.
That's a great point. And I just want to, as a founder myself, I also want to add a point, and I think both of you guys will further resonate and have seen much more. It's no matter how, at what size and what scale of an organization, you think the problems go by, actually a new set of more challenging and more complex problems come, right? Which is why I think it's a good point that both of you have brought up. There's always going to be more problems than people, no matter how big, whether you're a multinational or you're a 10-man startup, there's always going to be problems. So it really boils down to the key focus, as you just mentioned earlier, of what the team rallies around. And to your earlier 2 points, I think super sound as well. The purpose as well as in terms of what people work towards, but also I think beyond that, you know, how you guys get and work towards there as well. So really appreciate both points. The final 2 questions we have for this session, before we move towards, you know, what advice you have for everyone tuning in, and I'll get to that in a second. I want to switch gears from yourselves as leaders and employees towards how do you empower people managers within your organizations to become proponents for creating a thriving environment. So you guys have both mentioned quite a bit of this, and the team members and particularly people leaders are also ambassadors of the culture. But beyond that, how do you also ensure that they are the ones, you know, carrying forth a positive, thriving environment for all the team members? So maybe I'll start with Ben first, and then I'll go to Cyril.
Sure. We have something that we call RICO. It stands for RICO. So it stands for Recognizing Individuals Consistently and Openly. And this is something that we started many years back before COVID, I think 2018, 2017, 2018. And the whole idea is to push forward the culture of recognizing people versus finding fault for their mistakes. Because in the execution world and restaurants, it's very easy to find mistakes. If you know operations very well, you can operations person can go to the restaurant and say, that's not done right, that's not done right, that's not very easy. But it's not so easy, or it's not so intuitive to actually say, hey, that's done really right, that's done very well. And then recognizing the people to do it. But we really found the power in driving that whole idea of recognition, because once you start recognizing, you give people the sense of empowerment that, hey, I can do something good. And then when you recognize that person, someone else will see it and say, hey, I want to be the next guy that get recognized. So they will continue to do something good. And then instead of having a fear of doing something wrong, you have actually a motivation to do something right. And that's very powerful in the restaurant execution world, because again, you're always taught to find mistakes and then be marked on the mistakes. This is a totally different mindset. And we do it from top to bottom. So when we us as leadership, when we go down to the restaurants, we always ask, okay, who are your top 5 people you want to recognize and why? So the restaurant managers will find out, okay, these are the 5 people, and they'll talk about what they did that was really awesome. And then we bring that up, we showcase that, and when we have our quarterly meetings, when we have all restaurant managers in one room, sometimes we bring all these people on stage and then recognize them openly. And that subconsciously pushes that whole idea that, man, I want to be on that stage, or I want to do that for the customer, or actually I'm empowered to do things that are sometimes not in the playbook, but it's just how I am. I want to greet customers this way. I want to give customers a warm cup of water when it's raining. All that comes from that idea of RICO. And that's something that we have been pushing for a long time. And it really helped, especially in the COVID world. In 2 years, we really couldn't engage customers the same way. We just looked at how we can recognize people for keeping our restaurant safe. So the idea is the same, but the objective is different. Safety is number one. So we just keep doing that. And I think that really helps to drive that idea of the whole culture of openness, sharing good practices and all. But again, it didn't start and happen from day one. You know, it really took a mindset shift. And now at 2022, it took a few years. But now at least you can safely say, when we go into a restaurant now, we look out for the good stuff, not the bad. Bad stuff, okay, we coach and learn. But at least we recognize the good stuff. That's something we want to do moving forward as well.
That's great. Thanks, Ben. I think recognizing and designing good incentives and not just, you know, fears and concerns, but really positive recognition. I think it's amazing. Cyril, what about you?
Actually, what Ben mentioned is like super awesome, right? And I think something over the years also reflected. It's very easy to just pick on the not so good stuff, and it takes a deliberate effort to celebrate wins, big or small. I think it just creates lots of optimism and positive energy in the organization. But I think on the note of people managers and supporting them, one thing I've learned, I guess the hard way, is first recognizing that being a people manager and leader is absolutely hard, and also not for everyone. So first, don't make sure that you don't put someone who is really not into being a people manager to become a people manager. That's the first recipe for disaster. The second one is that even for those who actually want to grow and develop into people managers, you need to support them. You need to set them up for success. Um, and I think it's about giving them the materials, the tools, the coaching. We take for granted, right? All the basic manager 101 stuff that we all know. But actually, many of us, I say, maybe speak for myself, know it because I made a ton of really, really painful mistakes and accrued those toolkits myself. So I think if we can now acknowledge that and create conditions of success for new people managers, recognize that you need help, and I think most importantly, also allowing them some rope and room to go and learn, right? Make some mistakes and then grow. And they won't be perfect overnight. I think that's one. The second one is that I think leaders do need information to do their jobs well. So many a times, as your leadership team grows, you have smaller group strategy discussions, you make certain top-down choices, and then you just cascade it and then assume that everyone has been brought along. I think it's sometimes quite foolish to assume that what you spend hours trying to understand and internalize and decide, and then after an email or 10-minute town hall, you expect people to internalize it. So I think it's important to also bring people along the journey, especially your leaders who are the ones going to be at the front lines, dealing with your teammates, answering the toughest questions, dealing with the change management. They need the context. So I think constantly feeding them information, bring them along is key. And then the third thing is what Ben was sharing earlier that I resonate with, which is people tend to go it alone. And I think we should recognize that leadership is a lonely journey. It's difficult work, right? When you go have your one-on-ones with teammates, more often than not, they bring their problems to you. So at some point, you realize that actually leaders really have to carry a lot of that leadership burden, and they should not go it alone because there are other people, leaders in the organization as well, going through the same thing. So first, making sure that you have your one-to-ones to support your own leaders, like for myself, supporting my leaders. When I'm there, I'm telling them, tell me how I can help you. That's the purpose of the one-on-one, not so much for reporting, but more of like, how can I help you? Two, also creating forums for leaders to come together. So we have things like guilds, where it's a subset of leaders in the organization get together, discuss about issues, strategy, so that everyone is having an opportunity to interact, build networks in the organization to help each other out, and build friendships. And one example comes to mind during COVID. COVID was super hard, right? Lockdowns happened across markets. What we created was a call. We call it the COVID leadership call, as explicit as it sounds. First, recognizing that, wow, all our GMs in each market must be panicking, right? What am I going to do? Turns out, they have other peers also worrying about the same thing. And, some peers have the unfortunate experience of getting locked down first. So they will be the ones who are able to share. So, some examples of this where you recognize that, hey, actually, it's a lonely job. We should leverage the network effect of people who are equally lonely and panicky to come and band together and help each other out. So, these are some of the thoughts about how do we support our managers, recognizing that, hey, you know what? Managers do need help. They need to be set up for success, giving them the context and information to do their jobs well. And three, recognizing that they need the support. It's a lonely job, and we can be there as fellow leaders to help each other out.
Man, that is super insightful. I think very, very tangible tidbits of actions for many managers and leaders out there. Super helpful insight for everyone. I know we're about time. So one just final piece to wrap up could you share a one-liner or mantra that both of you guys live by or would recommend? Given that the theme of this is on leadership as well, that you have for leaders listening in on how can they navigate this uncertain, quite new world of post-pandemic work and life as well. Maybe Suri first.
Yeah, I think, well, I think it's important for leaders to recognize that this is a long journey, right? If you want to make meaningful long-term impact, it's going to be a marathon. And I got one of my favorite quotes, right? Most people tend to overestimate what they can achieve in 2 years and severely underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. So it's important that as leaders yourself, you have to keep going for the long term. Your team also has to keep going for the long term. But it's also important to recognize that for leaders, it starts with yourself. When you take aeroplanes, right, the flight safety briefing, they always tell you to wear your oxygen mask first before you help someone else. I think it's the same for leadership, right? You got to manage your own energy, your own wellness. You got to show up your best self so that you can, eventually help your teammates do their best work and your organization actually succeed for the long term. So personally, for me, it's McDonald's every Wednesday, Ben. Like, I'm a big fan. Walk and podcast on the weekends. So I think recognizing that you got to go the long haul, managing your energy, recognizing that your teams will also need to be managing for the long haul for sustainable long-term impact.
Thanks, Suri. I think really, really memorable piece there. And Ben, over to you.
Man, I can't agree more. I don't know what else I can add to that, but I guess from a personal journey, I think what's very important, very similar to what Suri talked about. As a leader, you are yourself, and you have a certain style, you have a certain character. Some of our leadership team members last year, we did a team building, and instead of just carrying wheels and all that stuff, we went deeper. We went to do an enneagram for each of us. And the whole idea is this. Look, I'm for example, I'm the what they call I can't remember what the name is, but I'm the helper. So I like to help. I like to help everybody, like vice captain, like to help everyone and all that. But I'm put in a position where I can't help everybody. Sometimes my folks have to have the freedom to think of themselves, and my job is just to bust barriers, in whatever way they have. So for me, being that kind of helper can be exhausting in a situation where you need to continue helping and busting problems. So it did drain me out a lot over the past 2 years. And for me, it's when I knew I was getting drained out, what do I do then? How do I get my own energy? Where do I find my own energy to get back to my balance? And I think that's very critical for all leaders. You have to first know your telltale signs of when you are actually burning out. And when you do, how do you get back to your equilibrium? Because I can't agree more. If you don't show up clear and well, you're gonna make a lot of wrong decisions, and your team is gonna suffer from that. And you're gonna suffer from that because you got to clean up your mess after that. So it's a vicious cycle that if you don't want to get to that, then spend more time working on yourself, understanding yourself, and understanding your telltale signs of when you are kind of hitting a wall, and most importantly, know how you can get around or get to a better state. So I think if you do that, then at least you're clearer, and your team will be more appreciative of that. That's all I can add.
I think that's amazing insight. And just to kind of summarize both of your last statements, I think it stems around putting yourself first as well, recognizing your own needs, your pain points, and making sure you're in the right shape and mindset to support. But right after, also making sure you can bring your best self for the team to also rally around. So really, really insightful nuggets there. We're going to conclude here, but thank you both so much. This has been really amazing, very insightful session from both very, very established business leaders here. So for all those tuning in, thank you for listening in and joining this session on leadership and in mental health as well. Stay tuned for the next session where we have more speakers speaking about mental health in the workplace and in the public lives as well. Thank you again both to Ben and Suri, and for all tuning in. We'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
All right, thanks again, Theo, Ben, and Suri. It's not often that you get to meet and hear from one industry-leading CEO, let alone two, and we had the chance to, of course, do so in the previous session. Now, we are unfortunately
at time. So we'll be moving to our next and exciting session quite soon. But before that, I want to ensure that some of the Q&A questions are addressed and you know what to expect. So most of our sessions between 2 to 4 p.m. today features people leaders in the world's largest companies like Google, Microsoft, and so on. And you'll be hearing about many of the questions that you have been asking throughout the event. For example, we'll be addressing about the measurement around mental health in our 2:30 p.m. session later. We'll also be talking about organizing mental health sessions in your respective workplace, the question from Pratima at our 2 p.m. session. And lastly, but equally importantly, the question around identifying burnout and challenges that people are facing in the workplace will also be addressed in both of these sessions. So stay tuned. We, of course, have a very interesting session about how mental health will be changing the corporate insurance landscape very shortly, and I'll see you there. Thanks, everyone.